My name is DURK and I run the Tom of Finland Foundation in the United States in Los Angeles. Well, we're a museum and an archive, and we want to invite you to come and visit us there because it's open to everyone and everyone is welcome. We call this exhibition Love and Liberation because it really is about love, and it's about how Tom of Finland was responsible, not solely, and he would never want to be singled out as solely, but that he was responsible for developing a whole generation of young men who were growing up and they were feeling good about themselves. So they were self-confident, they had self-esteem, and so that they were getting ready for gay liberation. So this man was responsible for raising up the self-esteem of homosexuals at a time when they really needed it. And he wanted to see if he could help contribute to making their lives a lot better so that they could actually love each other freely without any guilt. Nowadays, Tom is the love of lesbians, of straight women, of men in general, of homosexuals, of transgender, of fluid people, because we all can find things in him that we can connect with. And so he created this huge body of work. So this one here actually is a preliminary sketch for a bar that is in Hamburg, Germany, and it's called Tom's Saloon. And they requested that he it's the only bar that he gave his name to, and it's also sort of their logo. Yeah. And so this was the preliminary sketch for their logo. We brought this one because we thought no one will ever think that this is a Tom of Finland, but this is a 1960s mod illustration that he did just because he was really a fashion illustrator in his own heart, even though he didn't do it. He did a little bit of it commercially. He did some bathing suits for a line, but oftentimes he would just do it because he was coming up with ideas and designs for his men to wear. So we thought that this would be great to bring along. And in the 80s, he was extremely prolific, and he did hundreds and hundreds of preliminary sketches. And a lot of them were done in Los Angeles during the 80s. He lived in Los Angeles at the Tom House during the 80s, and it was a place where he was just full of new ideas, and they just flowed out of him. Over here we have two preliminary sketches, and the beauty of them is, in my eye, is that he really worked at really sort of perfecting the face of one, and then just did the outline, and so what he was going to consider. Again, neither one of these were ever taken on to being a finished drawing. So you can really get a sense that he did hundreds and hundreds of preliminary sketches. And he was actually speaking about the 60s. So as early as 1961, he was doing interracial drawings. And they were absolutely taboo in America. But Britain had a market for it. Yeah. And so, so he was able to actually execute drawings that were interracial, and send them off to Britain. He loved London in the 60s. The 60s were happening. The leather scene was blossoming. He was contributing to the whole look of the leather guys, and he wanted to move here. And he wrote a letter to Felix Jones, one of his best friends here, and he said, "Felix, I am so sorry that I cannot actually come and live in London and become Tom of London," because he was really willing to change his name and come and live here. But he says, "Your postal authorities are so invasive that they will open my mail and I'll end up in jail." This is actually from a club that's here and has been in London for a long time. It's called Backstreet. This is a blow-up of it, but it is of the actual Leatherman that he commissioned. He was commissioned to draw for Backstreet. And so we thought it was really appropriate to bring as much of England along with it. Sometimes it's all about me. Well, no. But these two are actually of me. And so this one is a preliminary, and I never did get to see. I've seen prints of the finished work, but it was sold to a private collector before I ever even got to see it. So I just got to see the preliminary of it. And we brought this one along in that this was a gift that Tom gave me on 1980 for my birthday. And I wanted to bring it because it really represents what we call one of his masterworks. In that if you really look at it and you look into the eyes, I mean, it brings tears to my eyes, even today, because I realized that what he did is he captured my soul. And that was the thing that drew me to him. I didn't grow up with him. I actually discovered him when I was 26. And I wrote him a fan letter. I got his address. And he was able to do that. He was able to embed into a drawing spirit and the nuances of the personality. And this has never been seen ever before. This is the first time it's ever been. And it's a beautiful counterbalance to this one. But this was my partner at the time that I met Tom, and his name is Butch. And it was going to be destroyed. What happened is that Tom finished it, and then he went to spray a fixative on it, and the fixative malfunctioned and shot out all of these globs of fixative all over the piece, and he was ready to tear it up because it was destroyed. But I said, no, let's keep it, let's hold on to it. And finally we found a conservator who was able to painstakingly take all of that fixative off of the work so that it could now be exhibited again. The piece that, this is one, he did several boot drawings, and this is the preliminary for one of them, but really showing the ecstasy of this man who's just surrounded by these boots. I was telling somebody last night that one time I was in a bar, in a leather bar, and I dropped my keys, and I had to get down on my knees and go around looking for my keys on the floor, and I was surrounded by all of these men in boots, and it was sort of like this experience. What we have here is we have some of the earliest physique magazines that he was ever published in. This one here was the spring of 1957, and this was the first time he ever was published, and he was given the name Tom of Finland. The magazine gave him the pseudonym of Finland. He was signing his work as Tom, but here they said this is Tom of Finland. In the 1950s, he had his own little mail order company, and so fans would write him a letter from all different countries in the world, and they would ask him they wanted to buy prints. So what he made is these tiny little, these are the original catalog prints that he made, and they had to fit inside this size of envelope, because if they were any larger than this, then the postal authorities could open them. And so these are samples of the print sizes that and these are all original prints from that era that he made. So what he had to do is, he had to make these in his own photo lab, in his own house. And so he had to learn how to develop film and make prints, and then he would correspond, and he would send these little catalogs in an envelope to them, and then they would write down the code numbers, and they would send some money back to him. He must have gotten money from all of these different countries, and then he'd have to have it exchanged and everything. So the process was very elaborate. Then what he would have to do is to make these prints that were on these catalog numbers, and then he would mail them to his fans. So it was a very elaborate process. This is at the same time that he had a full-time job, and he was working as an art director for McCann Erickson during the day. So Tom was never, he felt not safe, that their jeopardy could be in trouble. So what he did, right up until the point where he passed away, he destroyed all of his correspondence. because he was afraid that possibly things could get worse again. And all he kept was a bundle, a big bundle, a bag this size of all of the canceled stamps from all of the thousands of letters that he had received. And that really sort of shows how long and how popular he was. Here again are a part of a series, and a little bit rough and tough in that, and what the scenario is that's going on is that these two leather dudes are coming into the gym, and what's happening is that this fellow's, you know, sitting there very sort of cocky and full of himself, and they decide that they're going to and this is sometimes the thing that he would do. He would take a superhero and he would put him into an awkward situation. And so here they're giving him a shower in his gear just to cool him down and make him a little bit down to earth. And there's like fighting and wrestling and going on in here. Is that in 1960, which is when this piece was done, men were not allowed to touch each other in the United States affectionately. So if you were going to produce something in a publication, you had to show them either wrestling or fighting, because anything else was not allowed. Affection was absolutely forbidden.